And another thing, culturally in the black community, it's kind of like if you depend on therapy, it's almost like you are turning your back on God, because God is our great physician. He's the ultimate healer, right? So if you go to therapy, you don't trust in God. What's up, geeks? It's your guy Q here, aka JGTV, and we are back with another one, guys. And today, God Over Culture, we are going to be talking about therapy. Yeah, this is going to be interesting. All right, so therapy. First part, I'm going to do two parts. First part today, we're going to talk about what necessarily does therapy look like in my life and what culture says about therapy. Let's jump right into it. So growing up, I didn't hear much about therapy. I probably didn't hear therapy at all when I really sat down and thought about it. What's funny is my grandmother did work at Bellevue Hospital. Now, some of you might not know this hospital. Bellevue Hospital is a hospital in New York. It's actually one of the oldest hospitals in America, one of the first public hospitals. It's been around about 300 years. My grandmother actually worked at this hospital, and I must admit, like, Bellevue was pretty much like an iconic landmark in New York City. I was reading an article on it, and a guy talked about how there was a specific punchline in New York that was used regarding Bellevue, right? And it's funny because it resonated with me so much. His mom used to say to him, if you keep it up, you're going to Bellevue, right? So I've actually heard this said to me a couple of times, and I think that's probably the closest thing to therapy I ever heard in my household. And as far as I knew, Bellevue growing up as a kid, it was a place where crazy people went. I did not know why my grandmother worked there. I did not know what part she worked in. I just knew that that's what I had heard about that hospital. As a child, I never experienced therapy, right? It wasn't something that was talked about in my house. Never really heard my mom talk about it, my grandmother, and no male figures. It was just not something I heard a lot about. I did hear, if I did hear anything about it, it would probably be regarding something like, oh, that's for like crazy people. But I really didn't hear the word therapy much at all. As a young child, I did get into trouble a lot. I fought a lot in school. So I did get to points where I would have to like sit down with my guidance counselors and talk about if something was bothering me. And I actually did attend anger management a couple of times in my life. One of the first times I attended anger management, I was fairly young, probably second grade. And then another time in my life, I was much older in the military, probably in like my early to mid 20s. So I did have experience with those things, but that wasn't therapy. There are a lot of thoughts and stigmas around therapy in general, but I gotta be honest with you, in the black community, those thoughts and stigmas run pretty rampant, right? Like I said, I didn't hear much about therapy growing up as a child, but when I did hear about it, oh, that's for crazy people, right? And no, I'm not trying to offend anyone, so please, if you struggle with any type of mental illness, don't think I'm trying to offend you in any way. But yeah, that's what I would hear, like, that's for crazy people, right? Or just a cultural thing, that's for white people, right? Like, I literally would hear things like that. Or people only go to therapy, like, if they've been off to war or they've been maybe raped. Or it was always something bad when it came to therapy. It was like therapy equated with bad. And that's just the way I associated therapy in my younger years as a child. I didn't think much about it until I attended therapy as an adult, to where all these stigmas kind of came back to me, right? In the black community, there are stigmas like we don't need therapy, right? We just gotta keep on keeping on, or we're strong people, or we don't need that stuff, right? Like God made us strong. And these are legit stigmas that I would hear as a child growing up in therapy. A lot of my older family members did not believe in therapy, right? It was a real stigma that if you had God, you didn't need therapy, which now I think is ridiculous. And another thing, culturally in the black community, it's kind of like if you depend on therapy, it's almost like you are turning your back on God, because God is our great physician. He's the ultimate healer, right? So if you go to therapy, you don't trust in God. And all of these stigmas, all of these thoughts aided to why for years and years and years, I would never ever attend therapy. If some of us are honest with ourselves, a lot of the things I'm saying is definitely resonating with you. Some of it's resonating with you if you're black, if you're mixed, and if you're white, because therapy has a stigma about it in general. Like in general, everyone has a thing about therapy, right? Like, oh, I don't need that, or that's for those type of people. I don't need things like that, right? Upon me and my wife meeting, I learned that she had been to therapy long before I did. But through my wife's experience, I also learned about unhealthy therapists. Now, she had been a therapist, but for some reason, she had told me that none of the therapy had really helped her. And that was something that actually aided to me having stigmas. It helped my stigmas, right? I would be like, yes, I knew this was a lie. I knew it was fraudulent. Like, the therapy didn't help her, so I definitely don't need to go. Little did I know, like I said, we really learned about unhealthy therapists, and that sometimes people can become therapists and they themselves are not healthy, so they can make their patients feel things that a therapist that might be healthy and have the proper training would never make them feel, right? Now, as we have got married, grown together, been to therapy together, we have learned what healthy therapists look like and what healthy therapy looks like, right? And it has actually been something that was really uncomfortable for the both of us at first, because we was like, is this normal? You know, I don't know how to feel about this. But as we've progressed in it, we've learned that this is actually a godly thing. Like, this is actually something that God would honor. Not saying that the therapist is replacing God, but rather his sovereignty. Like, he is using the therapy to make us experience holistic healing. Of course, along with the Holy Spirit. Like, you have to have God in the middle of everything. You're not about to just get holistic healing from just going to therapy. And if you think that, like, you're still deceived. So my personal experiences with therapy, right? I said I was going to be pretty transparent with this video when I was talking to my friend about making it. I have myself been in actual therapy, right? So not like guidance counselors or anger management, but I've actually been in therapy, and I've actually been in therapy for some time. So there was a time where I experienced therapy for about maybe 3 months or 6 months, and I kind of just was like, you know what, it's not my thing. I don't want to deal with it. The next time I went back, I was kind of struggling with it, and I said, you know what, like, I actually want to get better. Like, I actually want to know why I'm struggling with these things, why these things might be happening. Why do I react to situations and things the way that I react to them, right? Some people do react like me, some people react worse than me, and some people don't react at all. And all of that was intriguing to me. Like, I know you guys are like, man, all of that. But yeah, that, with the way that my mind works, all of that was intriguing to me. Like, yeah, someone can get mad, right? But why does someone suppress it? Why does someone lash out? Why does someone feel like they need to, like, choke somebody out? Like, where does all of this come from? And these are the things that I wanted older in my life when I find myself going to therapy. So then when I went, I stuck with it.